drive through that place for an hour. It's so huge.
But you lived on the same street as Westmoreland.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where? How many kids did you have? You had David and Michael
And Kathy.
and Kathy.
Patrick was born down there in '65.
And so when John F. Kennedy was killed, you were vacuuming.
I was vacuuming. And I thought it was just one of those soap operas. I heard just in the background. I wasn't paying any attention. I just had the TV on. And then we just got in from Mass on Sunday when, what's the one that killed him? Not to get terrible for names.
Jack Ruby?
He killed the one that killed
Oswald. Lee
Oswald. I just got in from church and turned on the TV, and they were bringing Oswald down through, and I saw Ruby shoot him.
Live on TV?
Yeah. It was on TV. And we just got in from that because they were bringing him through they had cameras everywhere on him at the time he was arrested. And then I saw Ruby just get out and shoot him. Go right up at you. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. And for 3 days, I mean, nobody, like they all had maids except me. I didn't have a maid. But they hardly ate or anything. Everybody was crying and crying, right in Washington.
Mm-hmm. And when John Glenn lived down the street from you on the same block?
He had just moved out
just
before we moved in, and then Westmoreland moved in.
Okay.
And Westmoreland was really criticized during the war for not giving the true amount of the people that were killed because it was such an unpopular war.
This was the Vietnamese War.
Yeah.
And were you? Did you drive a car when you were there?
If you could call it that. Roger had to come up to Ottawa for a 7-week course. And I just had Patrick. Well, you had to go to the Pentagon to get your groceries, which was great because they gave you wouldn't believe the prices. But you had to get a tag to go in. You couldn't bring anybody else in. And they even had a special lineup for pregnant women. And you couldn't bring your kids in, but they had all kinds of babysitting services going in. You pick your kids up on the way out. Now, just for vegetables and fruit would be as big as a store here. You couldn't believe the size of it. So that's where we had to shop. So I had to go to the Pentagon to get a thing for that. That was amazing, just to see the Pentagon. And, so then Patrick was born down there.
And then you came back to Ottawa.
Yeah. And then we moved in beside Curly and Marion. They had a lovely double on, see, my memory's gone completely. It's out near Algonquin College.
Right, near Woodruff, I think.
On Woodruff. That was it.
That's right. I remember that when you lived there. Yeah. And then so how much younger was Mom than you?
I was 9 years older than your mother.
Okay.
And Gertrude was 5 years older than me. And then Eleanor was the oldest.
Yeah. And then you, okay.
So when your mother came down to visit me, I was pregnant for Patrick. So he was born in February '65. So they came down in '64.
Okay.
And Anne was a couple of years old, and you were just about a year old.
And you were in the convent before you...
Oh yeah, when I was 21.
When you were 21.
And I didn't get married till I was 24.
Okay. So how long were you in the convent?
A year.
A year.
And then you decide whether it's nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So.
And
if I'd stayed in, what I wanted to do was look after children in an orphanage or something, because I love kids.
And was it a tough decision to leave the convent?
Yes, but Yeah. So, and just gained a good life for a year,
Right.
You don't even take temporary vows for 2 years. But you pretty well know. Like there was a girl in there that was engaged, and he was the mayor of Ottawa at the time, and I can't remember his name. But she said to him, You know, can't make up my mind whether I should get married or whether I have a vocation. So she came in, and she stayed. So it was her vocation.
Yeah.
And then he married somebody else, and I remember on the day he got married, she sent him a telegram.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And then in terms of your like, how old were you when your dad died?
All right, he died in 68, and I was born in 31. So 41, 51, 61, 37. I'd be 37.
1937.
And then I was 44 when my mother died.
But I mean, all I remember of them is they're just really, really nice people.
Who?
Of like Grandpa and Nanny Kelly.
Oh my God, they were the best.
Yeah.
My mother was the same. My father, he loved kids. You could have 10 on top of him,
Yeah.
and it never bothered.
Because they had a small place on St. Patrick.
Oh yes, it was, and we didn't go down for dinner once. There was too many, but we all went down after Mass on Sunday, you know. And if Marilyn wanted to go shopping when my father was retired, she'd come down early with one of the babies and put them in bed beside my father. My father was happy as could be.
Yeah.
So that would have been Stephen, because
Right. And your mom never worked. Like
No.
she should have raised 7
she
kids.
was married 18, she never worked.
But she was beautiful.
She was. She was a real saint.
And your dad liked to hunt and fish.
Oh my God. I mean, 7 kids. My mother never worked. He used to shoot one deer a year, and I'd go down the basement step and watch him skin the deer and cut it up. And then the water was so clear then, he'd get, those sacks he'd have full of fresh fish. And he shot partridge, and he got a lot of meat to help feed the family. But he loved to hunt and fish. I mean, he had 1 week's holidays a year, and that's what he did.
Did he ever do any sports? Because Derek and Billy and Kenny were all
Well, all I remember him is working. He never, I know he loved football. Did you hear about him going to the Grey Cup up in Toronto?
Oh, yes, yeah.
And the boys marching in with the band?
Who was it? Is Derek and Billy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted to go, and he couldn't afford to take them. He had season tickets with the man at work.
Yeah.
And he said, I can't afford to take you. They didn't have the money. And he's sitting in the stands, and the band comes in, and who was in at the end of the band but Billy and Derek? You could imagine when he looked down and saw them sitting there.
Did he ever, like, what was his other interests? Did he like music?
He loved musicals, like Annie Get Your Gun, all those. He just loved those. And he told me about going to see Al Jolson in person.
Really?
Yeah.
That must have been... Yeah,
He loved musicals. He loved politics. Oh my God, there wasn't anything he didn't know about politics. He died in 68, and nobody had heard of Pierre Trudeau. And he was elected Prime Minister in 68.
Right.
But you hardly heard of him. I mean, he just sort of came out of the blue. But my father said to me when he was sick, you wait and see. Trudeau's going to be the next Prime Minister.